Hey there, all you queens and cryptids, and welcome to Queer and Loathing, the only podcast that may entirely be a figment of your own imagination. Yeah. I'm your host, Brett Bodie, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts.
I'm Mel.
I'm Samantha.
And we're trying something new today, in the sense that we are videoing ourselves.
And sitting next to each other.
Yeah, and it is for sexual reasons, if you were wondering.
I was.
Yeah, if you both were wondering, it's sexual for me. And with that great start, let's get into talking about our movie today, The Substance.
Yay!
A new release this year, written and directed by Coralie Fargeat.
Is that how her name is pronounced?
Possibly.
Wait, let me...
I don't stand by that or anything I say on this pod. Fargeat. I even watched an
interview. I'm gonna go with Brett.
Well, I watched an interview even to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
But also, French is weird because they don't emphasize syllables. So, I say, Fargeat, but it's Fargeat. It's just all monotone. That's just how the language is. Yeah, so... it's a stupid language.
Oh.
This is not a podcast that supports French people.
No.
British
Let's be
people.
clear. No.
No.
Certainly not. Yeah, and this is a movie for the true sickos among us.
Yes. So, okay. Theater experiences. We all saw this in theaters. Obviously, Brett saw this 2 times.
I did.
In theaters. And I must say, one of the best parts about seeing this in theaters, and any sort of disgusting art house sicko shit that makes it to the silver screen, right? The masses.
Yes.
Is just seeing the reaction from the normies that just are oh, a new Demi Moore movie.
Right.
And it's this is a spoiler. Everything's spoilers. We always are going to spoil. But I will say it's the last 20 minutes of this movie where I was just my cackling was just echoing through an otherwise silent theater.
Uh-huh.
Part of it was what was on screen. And
yes.
The other part of it was just that I was surrounded by people who were just trauma silent.
Oh, okay. We were having a fun time in my theater, so...
Were you?
Yeah. Oh, my turn? Okay,
yeah.
me. Yeah.
No.
I didn't know if you were done.
Brett, what was your experience?
Yeah, Brett, what was yours? I'll go last, it's fine.
Well, I was disappointed with my audience on both occasions.
Oh.
Just because they were so, unresponsive. I feel so many showings I go to, it's people are afraid to laugh at something because they don't want to seem, weird or I don't know what it is.
Well,
but I was laughing up a storm. Well, okay, so the first time I saw it, it was an early screening in the sense that it was a Wednesday night and the release was the next day. So I didn't see it way in advance. But it was just for members of the Angelica theaters. So it was a pretty small audience, but it was all people who I think, or mostly people who go to art house movies who are probably more familiar with what to expect, at least to some extent. So there were other people laughing at parts, and I saw it with a friend, and she was laughing. But I just, it wasn't quite the, communal experience I was hoping for. So I went, again, Friday night. Pretty packed theater. It was 7:30. And, again, just very silent. No one was really reacting, but there was a couple next to me that was cringing and, folding in on themselves. And at a certain point, they just got up and left. So after someone may or may not have gotten just kicked to death, they were out.
Well,
And I was that's probably a good time to leave.
So far, though.
Well, yeah.
But then again, you're right. It doesn't calm down.
Well, that's the thing. It just keeps
moment.
going from there.
It really was their time to leave, I guess.
That's
they hit their
kind of
limit,
what I thought.
It's for the best.
That's kind of what I was thinking. So I did respect that. But then I almost felt both I was having my reaction, but also I was
trying to help
other people feel okay about laughing. I don't know. I don't know why I felt the pressure to be the audience, but
well,
I did.
I think I know. Well, I have a lot of anxiety, and it's very cute. Very cute.
We all agree.
And I know normally when I go to the theater, I'm like, I'm not making sound. I don't want to bother other people. Y'all can shut the fuck up. Don't ruin my experience. I'm trying not to ruin yours.
I'm definitely like that with my
And-
snacks.
Me too.
I try to be a silent snacker.
And I am conscious of it. I try and get quiet snacks, gum my popcorn a bit. But yeah.
I will literally wait. I will put popcorn in my mouth, and if it's silent, I will wait to chew it.
Yeah, yes.
Until there's like...
Well, it's like, thank you.
Yeah, until there's noise in the theater.
No, but with this movie,
I'm not like this.
You shouldn't be. I'm saying this is not the way to be.
Well, but with this movie, I started off like that, and the guy, there was a couple next to me, and he was laughing. First of all, he was jiggling, so I was already mad at him, but
What did
jiggling
that
his feet.
I was like, why are you gonna hate on a jiggler?
I mean, he was jiggling his foot, both feet, and
You didn't
he
want to
was
like
laughing.
yell at him during the movie and say, "You're winning the race." Sorry, as a jiggler, people say that.
Do they? Oh, okay. Well, he was exceptionally bad because I can take light jiggling. It's fine, but it was going, and he was on a date, so I was like, whatever, fine. And he was laughing, and at first I was like, shut the fuck up, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm laughing, and then like my theater was pretty into it, so I ended up seeing this with my mom. My husband said he wanted to see it with me, and I'm really happy he didn't because he hates needles. If you hate needles, do not watch this movie.
There's a few kind of specific triggers, I think, like, because there's needles,
Teeth
there's
and
like,
nails.
teeth and nails, and it's all quite graphic. So
Yes.
But even
those
the
are like
needle
really
stuff, it's not even the needles for me. It was the needle going into
an infected
an incredibly
spinal wound.
Yeah, an
Yeah, it was pretty
infected pus
disgusting.
wound. No, so I went with my husband, and our seat, because everything's like assigned seats now. Our seat was next to this like whole family of like wholesome looking white people, and they had little like blankets that were like had like the logos of like like colleges and the church and stuff on it.
Oh.
And I was like, like, I'm gonna watch these people at bedtime. But you know what they did is they fucking just started talking. Like the movie started, and we were in the Alamo, and they were just talking, and I'm like,
Did you kick him out? Did you raise a card?
No, I moved.
Because it was too obvious. Oh yeah,
I did. I got up and I looked at them.
Yes.
And then we went back a row where I couldn't hear them, and
you got to glare at them because you're back.
I mean mugged them because it's like I'm not paying for your commentary track,
right?
Correct.
And I can handle like this was like stage whispering, so they could hear each other over the music. So, but I did try out. I got like little my loops.
Yeah, I need to know.
Amazing.
Oh yeah, this episode not sponsored by Loops.
No, I was going to do that.
Oh.
But I didn't actually do it. But I am going to talk about them really quick because I got like all three types. And before my ones that are made for like concerts and movies and stuff arrived, I only had the quiets, and I tried those for this movie, and it was great.
Oh, good.
But I use the experience ones that are supposed to be for like loud stuff, but more crystal clear. I use those for Megalopolis, and it was perfect.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because I think anything I didn't hear during that movie was a sound mixing problem, and not my Loop's fault. But yeah, don't talk during the movie, but you can eat your popcorn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree.
We all agree?
Yeah.
Okay, I am curious.
Seconded, yeah. The motion passes.
Back to you.
Back to me. Because it's finally my turn. I've been begging for my turn.
So, like, okay, the second time you went, though, was it also at the Angelica?
No, the second time was at Cinemark.
Oh, okay. Sorry, were you talking?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
No, I wasn't.
So, let's talk. No.
Okay, where was I? So, yeah, if you do not like needles, when I went home, I told my husband, I was like, this was not for you, and you shouldn't ever watch it.
I mean, it's
really...
And it happens a lot. There's lots of scenes with needles.
Like, I have to give myself a shot, and he cannot be in the room.
Wow.
So he's whatever.
He
Love
should
him.
deal with that. Because, like, okay.
We've got other stuff to deal with, it's fine.
He is dealing with it. It's called avoidance.
And it works all the time. Avoidance always works.
Take it from me.
But I took my mom instead, because I was like, she's just been coming with
she
me.
And she loves needles.
She loves needles. Can't get enough of them. And I'm like, is she a sociopath or something? Because like the only time she jumped during this movie was during the car wreck, and the rest of it she was just like chilling. But she laughed a little bit. But
did she like it?
I think she did. She definitely was like, oh, Demi Moore. Which is also why I invited her. I was like, let's go watch it.
That's what she got out of the movie, was that Demi Moore was in it.
Yeah. And
She sure was.
I know, I enjoyed it. I really love this movie. I was thinking about seeing it again last night, except I was too tired. But I did have to dissociate a little bit at the end. I just had to leave my body and go up here.
Uh-huh.
When that boob came out, that's all I gotta say.
Oh.
That's all I gotta say.
That was when I was like
say.
clapping like a seal.
I think me too.
I was like, is that a boob? How is it gonna end? Where does the boob stop? And it stopped. So,
for
it was
me,
a good movie.
the only
liked it.
parts that were hard for me to watch was the needle going into the like pus
It was disgusting.
hole. And then when teeth and nails are coming off, I just can't watch that. Everything else, I mean, I really like this movie too. It's not one that I am going to rewatch anytime soon. Sometimes a movie is just a lot. It's just a lot.
And this is maybe one of the ultimate examples of a movie being
doing
a
the
lot.
most.
Yeah.
It's doing the most.
So you don't want to see it a third time and see it with me?
No, I do.
Okay, let's go see it. Okay,
Brett
good.
has like a stomach for
Yeah.
extreme.
I do.
Like, we talk
You're disgusting.
about
I
like
know.
splatter. Like you like splatter,
I do.
guts, things like that.
Mhm.
People
I
melting.
also love needles.
Melt
yeah.
movies, needles.
Big
You
love
love
of
needles.
needles.
You love when teeth fall out.
I do.
And nails being torn off
Yeah.
and all that sicko shit. And like, I really enjoyed this movie, but there were definitely times where I was like pulling up my knees and doing this.
Pulling up your knees just was I got stuck on that because I'm like, with this back, these can't go that far, but...
You were Demi
impressed.
Moore when she was in the chair and her like
Yes,
knees.
God.
trying
hit
to...
Horrible.
Yeah, that's me.
So anyway, this movie, go see it, I think.
Definitely go see it. Unless
You don't want to.
unless like what we've said
Be careful.
sounds too intense for you, in which case it is.
It's very intense, and it's intense on multiple levels, because it's not even like, not to throw shade at the Terrifier, but it's not like it's just about being extreme. Like, there's a lot being said in this movie that can be hard to deal with outside of just the violence or the melt or like the gross out gore and stuff. Like, it's both.
Yeah, and
Emotionally and visually and sound-wise.
that's what I was just gonna say. Is like
And
covering
sound-related.
your eyes won't even really help you, because the sound design in this movie is some of the most visceral I've ever experienced. Every little sound is just magnified and piercing, and it is amazingly effective. But yeah, so just covering your eyes like won't even help. You'll still get the effect.
Dennis Quaid killed me. Whenever...
Them
Yep.
scrams.
Well, I was gonna say the grossest stuff was not any of the body horror stuff for
For
me.
you, it was the
It was
shrimp.
everything with Dennis Quaid.
He was
His
gross.
butthole
Disgust-
mouth. His face is a close up of him peeing at the urinal, and then he leaves without washing his hands.
Yeah.
He's just like stuffing shrimp into his like buttery shrimp into his face and chewing with his mouth open.
And that's
I was
so
like,
early. It's
oh,
like,
it was
Mel, I
horrible.
think you said like some sort of warning to me, or I can't remember what it was, like good luck or something like that. And so when it got to the shrimp part, I was like, oh yeah, this movie's kind of gross. I was like, oh, is this it? Okay.
Yeah, that was
I
it.
was like, yeah, that's it.
but I
It's all
do think
smooth
that's
sailing
gross
from
enough.
here.
but it's a good warning because it happens
Yeah.
so early in the movie.
That's true.
If you can't take that,
Yeah, and
Yes.
to me, it's like that's a sign that this movie's supposed to be funny. Is like that entire character
I agree.
Yeah.
is so over the top, and Dennis Quaid in 2 movies that are in theaters right now, very similar films. This and
what's the other one?
Reagan.
Oh,
He plays Ronald
okay.
Reagan.
His politics, not great. Maybe not as bad as his brothers.
Yes.
Highly recommend
yeah.
checking out Randy Quaid's Twitter. It's great.
I'm too well to do that, but thank you.
I don't get on there, so I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably smart. Okay, so this film, go see it. sort of within the body horror. Everyone's talking about body horror, right? Like that's kind of the subgenre that people are talking about. When we were leaving the theater, there was a guy who looked like an annoying, like, letterboxed snob dude. So basically me, but a guy.
I was going to say you.
And he was talking to a woman who looked like she had just been through NAMM. As they were walking out together, and he was like, oh, it was so Cronenbergian, and blah, 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 as they, like, walked off, and she was just, like, 1,000 yards stare.
Did she, like, peel off and walk away? Like,
yeah, just...
I'm done.
And we never saw her again.
She walked into a corner and just stared at it.
Yeah.
The Blair Witch.
She's still there to this day.
She's still there. So yeah, it's like the way that people are talking about this, it's interesting because it's very like high art, sort of like pretentious, like film dork, but it's still, I think, very accessible.
Definitely.
It's not like, while it has a lot to say, none of it is too subtle, but none of it is, in my opinion, too on the nose to where it's like eye rolly.
I agree. Somehow it does walk that line. I'm like, this is one of the least subtle films that I have seen where I feel that choice is so perfect for its goals. So to me, it was, I think I wrote down that to me it seemed like it was a fable.
Oh.
And I have a definition too.
I like that already.
Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines a fable as a narration intended to enforce a useful truth. And I would say that and like a short story or a fairy tale, it felt like that type of thing, like a dark
More
fairy tale
like
for adults.
Aesop's fable. Am I right? Is it
Like
slop?
Aesop's
Oh.
fable and slop. I get it. It's not funny, but I get it. Do you see the distinction? No, not the butthole mouth. Oh. I turned to my friend at that close up of his just like puckered lips, and I was like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. And it still, it is.
I do.
It's right there with that boob.
I do. There's a lot of visuals in this.
Yep.
But I will say, like, I like, it definitely exists within a surreal space. Like, the tone of it, it's very sort of, I think fable is a good way to put it, or just sort of like extreme. It reminded me a little of like Beau is Afraid, and sort of like, this may just be like the way that she's experiencing the world.
Yeah.
You know?
None of it is like objective. There's not a moment of objective reality in it, even if this story like is largely happening.
It's so out of time in so many ways.
Yes.
Like having the main sort of celebrity that's new on the scene being a workout instructor. It's like, yeah, they still exist. They like work for like Peloton.
Right.
And they're only famous to the people who are using those Pelotons.
They're not on billboards
They're not
across LA and hosting the biggest networks, like biggest
like
live event. Because she hosts the New Year's special. Also, she doesn't even have a last name.
No.
She's just Sue, and she's like, I'm from a small town. Well, more like a farm. And everyone's just like, okay.
And to me, it just feels like that's how maybe, I don't know, we see celebrities, right? Is they're just these sort of boiled down, simple things. And I think choosing to make the celebrity not like a big movie star, like, because I'm thinking like comparing this to like Maxine, right? Instead of it being like, oh, the big movie star, it's a workout instructor on TV, which I don't think you get a Walk of Fame star for that.
I don't think so.
But
Well, okay, so Demi Moore's character, Elizabeth, before she takes the substance, she was an actor. She was an Oscar winner. They mentioned that.
Right.
So I think we're supposed to think of her as maybe like sort of a Jane Fonda type.
Okay.
Where it's like award-winning actor who is faded from relevancy, kind of, but is still...
Extends the career into workout tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking like a Jane Fonda, because she's the only one who kind of did that in that way, where it got that big. But in modern day, like, nobody's doing instructional... I mean, I do own some instructional DVDs of, like, how to do Tai Chi.
Yeah, and those instructors, they're hosting the New Year's special this year.
I
saw it on a billboard.
Dr. Paul Lamb, like 90-year-old Tai Chi master.
Surrounded by
boobs,
topless dancers.
Yeah, so it's all very like, the POV is always like really extreme.
Well, and also with the visual element of out of time. Like, I was brought to that from the start just with the cars, because it was like older models, but they looked brand new. And I was thrown for a bit. I was like, what decade are we in?
Older models that look brand new.
Brand new?
Oh.
Really makes you think.
It sure does.
So yeah, I think so what is the substance?
How do we pay for it? Sorry, that was another question.
It's
I
free,
had.
Well-
apparently.
Well, that's one of the things that I loved about this movie and why I really did read as a fable. Because it didn't even have me asking any of those questions. Really, at any point. I was so not...
But it didn't bother me.
I said, when am I getting the bill and how much is it? Because this seems very expensive.
It's not that
I
didn't
decided
occur
it was
to me, but...
an experiment test, was kind of how I was like, they don't want money, they want to see what's going to happen. Sorry, back to you.
That's probably more likely, or even more likely, is that
Fable.
it's not real. I mean, it's not, but...
Yeah, sometimes movies are fictional.
Oh.
That's not for you guys, that's for our listeners.
Oh, okay.
The substance is a substance that you
All right,
inject.
do you want to explain it?
No, because that's exactly
Okay.
how I say it.
So basically, Demi Moore gets fired. She's been working...
On her 50th birthday.
Because
she's now
she's expired.
old and unfuckable.
She is...
Haggard old crone, Demi Moore.
Yes. So she's still absolutely gorgeous, doing sort of old-fashioned 80s looking workout videos. And then she gets fired by the producer, who is Dennis Quaid, who's disgusting in this movie and in real life. And she's driving down, the road and sees a billboard of herself being torn down.
Yeah, it's like they rip off her face as she's looking. And she's so distracted by that she gets...
Whammy.
Gets hit by a car. And she goes to the hospital and she is fine. I mean, she's very shaken up physically and emotionally. She's fully
not okay.
Not okay at all, but she didn't break any bones or anything.
Yeah, she's physically fine, but she has a little breaky down. And then...
And the doctor's just like, oh, it's your birthday. I gotta see to another patient.
He just leaves.
He just leaves. And she thinks she's alone in the room, but sexy nurse man is still there and he's fondling her spine. And she's like, oh, I thought I was done. And he was like, oh, it's just a quick screening. You're an excellent candidate.
It's weird to me because, okay.
Oh.
I have a question already.
Yeah.
When you're the alternate, are you now in charge of, recruiting? Because he had, the card and the USB. Again, very Fable-esque. I don't think any of that is supposed to be...
I thought he might be the inventor, and she's, the first subject. Because I think in the room with the lockers, there's only 2 numbers on any of the lockers. It's just there, too.
Oh.
The old man version of him drops his card in the diner and she sees it. And that's it. I think it's literally, they're the only 2 people who have even taken the substance.
He was looking for his sort of, first victim.
Oh.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It was how I took it.
And it's not very thought out, so, again, makes sense that this isn't, everywhere. But, so
Fabling it is helpful for me.
Yeah, I think that the surreal sort of nature of reality in this movie.
So he, unbeknownst to her, has slipped a, flash drive into her lovely yellow
we love the coat,
which I loved. Yeah,
the other star of the movie was that coat.
It was a beautiful coat, and she wears it a lot. She wears it every day.
Wouldn't you?
I sure would. And she's leaving the hospital, and she runs into this guy who's like, Lizzie, it's Paul or whatever from, remember 10th period or 10th grade English. Or whatever, and she's like, "Oh, hey."
And he's like, okay, so he's old and dumpy, and they went to school together, and it's
they're both their characters are both 50, but she is young and hot, and he is old and dumpy. At 50.
Yeah. And I honestly can relate as the old and dumpy 34-year-old.
I can relate as the young and gorgeous 33-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, my porridge is just right, so. Great.
You Goldilocks ass bitch.
So he gives her number
on
his cholesterol
on his
test.
cholesterol test, and then he drops it in a puddle.
He's me.
He drops his number into a puddle
and still gives it to her.
And she's just like, thanks.
Because so we start the movie where she's kind of in denial about being an aging star She's very beautiful, but clearly she's had some work done. She works out for a job. She's in great shape. She's very fashionable. You know, she drives a nice car.
She has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, because that's the opening of the movie, is like...
But it's already a bit cracked.
Yeah, we see it like over time, and it gets cracked. You see people like it drops a burger on it, and if you know about the stars in real life, like people are taking shits, and it's real nasty. Those stars are real gross.
Yeah.
I was like, the most far-fetched thing in the whole movie is that they would clean the stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That was what I thought.
It's very funny that it's like...
You also see snow fall in that opening montage, which I think clues you in right away that, like, this isn't reality. It doesn't snow.
On Hollywood Boulevard?
No. So it's, like, right at the very beginning of the movie. It's like, this is not in our reality.
Yeah, it is sort of I would say a fairy tale, but it's maybe more like an old school German fairy tale that ends very, like, poorly.
That's exactly what I thought.
Everybody.
And it's about, like, and I thought it is to impart, like, a lesson. And that lesson is, you have to love yourself, or this is what will happen. Oh,
yeah. So,
and
okay,
it's
so...
haunted me
I think
ever since seeing it.
We're going to talk a lot about the themes and the ideas, but just for those of you who haven't seen it, maybe you're too squeamish, you're too nervous, or you're just going to wait till it comes out for your home video
you're
and you
just
don't care
a
about
coward
spoilers.
with a
You're
coward's
You'd
heart.
rather go see Reagan or whatever it is.
You're weak, your bloodline's weak, and you won't survive the winter.
So if that's for you, basically, if you use the substance, which is sold to her as like a new you make basically a clone of yourself that it's unclear how much you share with you share life substance with them, but you don't share like a brain. Like,
I think you maybe keep like some, like there's some level of awareness, but yeah, it's not, I don't think you like have all of the memories of your other self.
right. And again, it's not clear, and I think that's
Yeah.
on purpose. But when you get the substance, it says you need to switch.
Yeah, so you activate once, and then
Activate
you
once.
discard the activator.
Then
Ominous sound effect.
yeah, put it in.
Yeah.
Then you need to feed your alternate self with
Yes, you hook them up to the food matrix.
the food matrix, which is just slop that
And-
goes in.
And your other self, your clone self, needs to stabilize every day. And the stabilizer fluid is located in the spine of the original.
Right. So the original is feeding the new version, the alternate self. Again, not exactly super subtle, but effective.
Mhm.
Right? So when you're the alternate, you must stabilize by pulling out like basically spinal fluid
Yeah.
and injecting it into yourself.
And if you don't, you start to like die and fall apart.
Yeah.
Like your nose starts bleeding and you are like falling down and
Yeah, you must be kept alive by the other person, and then
you
have
to switch back.
They say you have to switch back every 7 days. It's once that food matrix is done is when you need to swap. And
And not clone, the alternate, the second one.
I mean,
whatever,
it's
gets
basically
headaches.
a clone.
Yeah.
Clone Plus, enhanced clone, gets headaches if they don't have their little activator thing. So it's very much like, you have to do this every day, or maybe your brain will explode or something.
Yeah. And that would also eventually kill the original. You know, if the clone died, then there's no one to, like, you can't switch back, so then the original would just die.
You become absolutely dependent on each other.
And what they say over and over again is,
You are one.
remember, you are one.
Yes.
And because both versions will, like, call into customer support at various times, and they've got complaints about the other one. So, Elizabeth's like, she's not respecting the balance. And he goes, there is no she.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Like, it's
you.
just you.
Yeah.
And I
Must be
really
maddening.
love that. Yeah.
Maddening.
Oh, I loved that. Because it really is just... Yeah, at the end I was just like, wow, this woman does not love herself. This
They
is the
do
most...
not respect the balance.
Yeah.
No.
Like,
no.
well, I will say that
Pretty quick, too.
Demi Moore's character does try.
Yeah.
But I think the
Elizabeth
way...
is trying to make it work for real.
Right. And I think the inevitability of it, because we see, I guess, the inventor or patient zero or whatever, we see the older version of him where he's like, you know, has she started taking from you yet? And what happens is that if you don't switch timely, like, because at one point, Sue steals like half a day.
Yeah, she's literally just like trying to get her freak on with some guy, and then she starts falling apart, kind of. So she's just like, oh, I just need a little more. She takes a little more spinal fluid, injects it, so she can.
And Demi Moore
gets
a witch finger.
Yeah, like she is
gnarly.
and it's amazing makeup throughout. But even as simple as like, yeah, her finger gets all disgusting, and
it's not even like necrotic.
Gnarly.
It's just like disgusting old gnarled. This is Crone-core. We finally,
it is.
Speaking of subgenres within like the horror world, I think one of the reasons why like horror people are so in love with this movie is it is really a celebration of some of the most extreme types of subgenre. Because you have the body horror, you have like the Crone-exploitation. Which is
well, that is a legitimate
subgenre.
It's called hagsploitation, and it's like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane with Joan Crawford and Bette Davis. That was sort of what kicked off. Also a great movie. But yeah, so it has that subgenre. It's psychological horror because it's all about like the violence you inflict upon yourself.
Mm-hmm. It's a melt.
Basically the whole thing. It does become a melt movie at one point. It's a shrimp movie.
Plate of shrimp.
Yeah, I thought that. I was like, plate of shrimp, Bader Meinhof.
It all comes back to Repo Man. But no, so...
it all comes back to shrimp.
It all comes back to shrimp on a plate of shrimp. Yeah, so the movie starts descending into madness as these two people...
Remember, they are one.
They are one.
Wow.
They are one, and they begin warring with each other. So Sue is stealing time, which is like haggifying Demi Moore's character, and then Demi Moore's character is becoming increasingly reclusive because now that she has this other version of herself, she doesn't want to be seen outside. And then as she starts basically getting cronified, she starts lashing out by making the apartment disgusting.
Yeah. Lots of food horror, which might sound weird, but if you see the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Also, I think it's kind of amazing that never before, in my opinion, has, like, food, like, even, like, some well-prepared food sometimes, and, like, beautiful naked bodies
looks so bad.
Been so unappealing.
Well, I think it's on purpose.
You
think?
Oh. You've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah, this movie has a lot to say about...
And it's all on purpose. She made it that way on purpose.
Yes, this movie has a lot to say about, like, consumption of, like, food and media and how we view food, like, especially people who have maybe problematic or, like, destructive relationships with food, how they interact with it.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing that there's so much subtext that you can read into about eating disorders, plastic surgery, self-harm, and none of it is really explicitly depicted, but it's all there. Like, this is not a reach. Like, it's all included in there. I just thought that was interesting that...
No, it's masterfully done.
Yeah.
And then Brett and I have actually, because of you, I've seen... Sorry, what's her name? The director?
Coralie
Fargeat. We saw her other movie. So
yes, this is her second film.
Years ago, or a few years ago, Brett told me to watch her first movie, Revenge. And I watched it, and then I rewatched it. That one I watched, like, again, pretty immediately.
Yeah.
And it's a totally different type of movie, but it also has a lot to say. And it also has a lot to say about subgenres surrounding women.
Yes.
Because that one is more, well, this one is a play on, like, how we view older women, especially within horror. That one is very much about rape, revenge, or just like sexual assault of women used within horror to showcase like boobs and sexuality, which is like just been a problem in horror forever. So,
and I think both movies, each movie makes the other one's themes more clear to me, I feel. Having seen both, I'm like, it's all really making sense. They're both very much fairy tale movies in heightened reality.
Yeah, and there are things that happen in both that are so unrealistic and aren't meant to be sort of seen in a literal way. And I do think Revenge is a more accessible movie. Like, I think it's more, even though it's not standard.
There is a ton of blood in that one as well.
Yes.
There's like a house full of blood at the end.
But it's not as, I think like it's a good primer.
I agree.
For this one. Like, it makes sense to me that she made Revenge and then she made this. And I'm so glad that this movie is doing as well as it's doing.
People are really talking about this one. It's kind of amazing that even with sort of a, I guess, modest marketing strategy, like, this movie is just not maybe by the general public, but in horror circles, this is the maybe film of the year.
To me, it feels like it's the Poor Things of this year. It's sort of like the weirdo, arty movie that sort of burst through the sort of film, the art film circuit into the mainstream. So maybe I'm being too optimistic. But...
No, I think that's true. And I would say that I still think this is a long shot, but just based on the narrative, I'm like, if we saw Demi Moore, like, even, like, nominated for an Oscar, I wouldn't even be that surprised, even though it never happens for horror, really. Just because of the narrative of, like, she was an A-lister, like, hot young star, and now she's...
And it's about Hollywood, which Hollywood likes.
Yes, and it's just, like, this is, like, a big comeback movie. She gets naked, so people will be like, wow, that's so brave.
She puts on some of the most insane prosthetics.
Well, I was going to say, I actually do think it's a very brave performance, not because she's naked, but because she's so naked psychologically, honestly.
I mean, it's a movie that's, like when I see...
And she is absolutely amazing.
Yes. She's so good
in this movie. That was the first thing I said after I said, I did not know Demi Moore could act like that.
Right.
Because I was blown away by her performance.
I have the brain rot. So, like, I saw, like, ads for this, and then I always go, like, click comments. Like, I always just love reading comments on things, because I always want to sort of, like, put my finger on the pulse of, like, I don't even know if, like, normies are the people who comment on shit like that.
They're not.
But just, like, so. I want to see, like, what the darkest reaches of, like, Instagram commenters are saying.
That's self-violence.
Oh, yeah. No, I relate
that I
to
also
this
share,
movie.
because I also read the comments, and it does make me despair for humanity.
But, so after I saw The Substance, I was like, what are, like, normies gonna say about this? So I clicked on it, and it's, like, so fucking predictable, where it's, like, Demi Moore, that washed up, like, old, whatever, and it's like, yes, like, exactly.
Well, it's like, that is
why this movie
point,
is important. Like, I want to, like, we have so much to say. Do we need to take an ad break, though?
Oh.
So what?
I was so into this, I forgot to check my clock. Yes, it's time.
Okay.
Great.
This episode is brought to you by explaining how things work in writing or in diagrams instead of making me watch a fucking YouTube video.
Yes!
I actually do want to keep learning new things. And how to interact with technology or, like, tools that I've never used. But I ain't watching that. I learned, as someone who is in the midst of my croning, I learned how to do things. Like, I was taught to learn how to do things through, like, Lego page-by-page, like, instructional diagrams. And I'm sorry, that's just how it is gonna be for me. Like, I'm not watching your stupid YouTube video where 2 of the 4 minutes are the intro for your brand, and then having to pause and go back and not really understand what the fuck you're talking about, and I don't want ads, and fuck you.
Hear, hear. And I really appreciate our sponsor, this week because
This
I
is a
feel the same
personal
way,
one,
yeah.
y'all. This is a personal one.
See, I ask TikTok. I just look it up on TikTok.
Well,
Hmm.
good for you, bitch.
Wow.
It's actually been
So
really
you're
helpful.
Sue.
Yeah.
I might be. I have
Sue
trouble
Mantha.
just reading the instructions, so I need a
Okay.
helpful guideline. But
I feel
that's
like
how I
there's
learn.
nothing I can find anymore. It's like if I buy like a new type of like coffee brewer, I want just like descriptions, like step by step with
Me too.
words.
Me
Because
too.
honestly,
I do want that.
I
yes.
actually can read. I know that that's like a lost art.
Wow, shots fired at the younger generation.
They're not listening to our podcast
No, they're
again.
not.
I see our demographics. Just because people can't read anymore doesn't mean that we need to totally like throw out all reading and visual diagram based instructions.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch all these fucking videos. Also, so unreliable to watch some random person's instructions on TikTok. Because they're gonna be like, whoa.
Well, I will say it helped me with my car seat. So
Oh.
Is that something you wouldn't have been able to learn from a diagram?
no, that manual was fucking confusing. I do love reading a manual, but a lot of them are trash.
We existed
Sources.
before YouTube and TikTok, and it
Wow.
used to be that if the instruction manual was trash, someone, a good Samaritan, would
But
explain
a
it.
peer. Oh,
Would what?
a peer.
No, not necessarily.
When did that ever happen?
Well, it's like, okay, even for like video games and stuff, right? Okay, now I'm just pissed
Just
off.
go off.
But it's like, okay, so it's like if I'm playing a video game and I get stuck, it used to be I could go to like a game facts or like find a manual or something that would explain like how to unstick it. And now it's all just fucking YouTube videos. I'm old
How are they?
and
make
I'm
money?
mad.
Our other sponsor this week is Croning, which we all are.
I'm
Wow.
like, I would not be using the substance, but I do be using the substance. We'll talk about it. But
Okay. We'll talk about it after the break.
God damn.
That got so heated. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed spending your break reading written instructions and looking at diagrams.
Reading words and putting them together in sequences that make sentences that give you direction.
Yeah.
As they scroll through the TikTok video.
No! Fuck you and fuck TikTok.
God.
I'm in my Crone era for sure because I'm like these damn kids and their TikToks. In
I
my
drank the
day-
Kool-Aid, I'm in it.
So speaking of Crohn's, this movie puts the Crone in Cronenberg. Anyway,
Tune in next week for
no,
another episode.
but we need to talk about some like the themes and the influences because like there's so much in this movie that is referential.
Yeah, I lost count of how many horror movie references are in this film.
And for someone
And
like Sam, who
I'm like, I
did
could
not,
tell, but I need y'all to tell me.
but like even if you're not in on a lot of these references, I think you can still totally enjoy
Oh yeah,
this
well,
movie.
I thought that I actually loved it. Sometimes really obvious horror references I find sort of cringy and eye-rolling, but these were none of them took too much focus or attention. Like, the reference was there, but it wasn't like, hey, look at this, I know this movie, and I'm proving to you that I have horror knowledge. It just felt like it was like an organic part of the storytelling.
Yeah, and a lot of it was visual. Like obviously like The Shining sort of,
That's maybe the most overt one.
or just again like the to quote the annoying my mirror self,
Your Tulpa.
Oh.
my Tulpa
Your
guy,
letterboxd Tulpa.
my Tulpa guy who was exiting the theater around the same time as me. The Fly is just like so
Definitely.
referenced in this, of just a person like breaking down physically and turning into something else was very, very, I don't know, stark. In a good way though. I agree. None of it was like eye roll inducing to me.
Yeah, I said Carrie
Yes.
with the all the blood at the end. At the New Year's celebration, I said Repulsion, which is a Roman Polanski movie, but it's so good. But it's like a beautiful woman going insane in her apartment surrounded by gross food. So it was very, very Repulsion, actually. Blue Velvet by David Lynch, specifically because at one point Sue's ear falls off, and that movie begins with Kyle MacLachlan just finding an ear on the ground, and that's what sets the plot in motion. The Thing, because Elizabeth's head crawling at the end, it was the same reference that was in The Faculty, where it's just like a head that's like crawling around, and hers it was just a face at the end of this, the substance. Reanimator, because the substance itself, that neon green is the like Herbert West's Reanimator formula, and about a billion more. There were just endless references in a way that I don't know, I loved them.
And again, like Revenge felt like maybe a response to, or like a meditation on a certain subgenre, the rape revenge subgenre of horror. This one, it didn't feel like, oh, here's all these, Easter eggs for just shits and giggles. Like, everything felt like it was commentary while also having new things to say, which I like, because The Fly isn't about the same thing this movie's about.
Yes.
But the way that it portrays, I don't know, like internal change and external change and how we respond to that.
Like the grotesquerie of transformation, basically.
Yeah, totally. Can we talk about some of the themes?
Absolutely.
Because, like, to me, there's some very obvious ones. So, specifically about Hollywood and what women in Hollywood have to go through. I feel like anytime I'm on like Reddit or Instagram and anyone is talking about any Hollywood starlet, not even older ones, any of them, it's like commentary on, oh, she's had so much work done, or oh, is she on Ozempic, or like, oh, oh, she looks like shit. She used to be so beautiful. Why did she do this to herself?
And now you're having to get all of them comment on, no, I've only had this done. I haven't had this and this done. This is it. Like, they're having to comment themselves on all the speculation because it's so nonstop. And it's none of anyone's business.
Right.
And yes, there's like, and I get that there's nuance to this, right? Because when you are presenting yourself, like, because this to me just, it isn't only about plastic surgery and Ozempic. It's also, to me, reads very much about like filters and how, like, to me, when I think of like the substance within my life as someone who is not a celebrity in any way, shape, or form. I'm not an actor yet. No, I don't want that shit. To me, it's like the version of yourself that you portray through maybe social media or the outside world versus the you that exists on the other side of like just the normal you walking around. Because I think there's so much, at least like I think people are starting to really think about it. And so to get back to my point, which is like, there is nuance here, because if you're someone who's promoting your life and your look to really, and it's not even just like, teenage girls, but just like anyone where you're like, oh, this is what I look like and you can do this. And it's a filter.
Yeah.
And it's like Photoshop, and it's because there's filters now that can literally change the way your body is shaped in motion, like in a video.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And they're getting better and better because, like, they will cause, like, backgrounds to warp and stuff, but they're getting more and more sophisticated. So give it 6 months and you won't even have the telltale signs anymore.
One kind of sidetrack, but kind of not. On the Beetlejuice episode, I considered mentioning Catherine O'Hara in the new Beetlejuice just completely filtered the whole time. And I was like, but we know what she looks like. And
It's
she's
so distracting.
gorgeous. She's just her age.
We're starting to get
I hate it.
TikTok or like Facebook sort of Facetune-esque filters happening in real time on TV shows and movies.
Yeah.
And it's noticeable when it happens.
It is.
It's distracting.
It's distracting.
It sure is.
And it's mean.
Palm Royale, the TV show with Kristen Wiig. I enjoyed the show, but it was hard to get into the first episode.
They're filtering her face?
Oh yeah, and everyone. And also like all of the women on that show are playing younger than their ages. And I'm like, just cast it or write it so that it's not that. Like
Yeah.
either hire those actors and just make it work for their ages or cast younger actors, but don't like filter Kristen Wiig's face. I'm like, everyone knows what Kristen Wiig's face looks
Right.
like. It's so weird, this like
Well, it's
glossy, like no
uncanny.
pores and
Yeah. Well,
like,
that's
people
the
don't
thing.
look like that.
And so, like, you'll sometimes see, like, celebrities will post a picture of themselves being like, I have no makeup on, like look at me. and you're like, well, that's great, but, like, also...
Also, I'm like, I can see that you are wearing makeup,
Yeah.
first of all.
There's that, too, where it's
Well,
like, well...
I like to play around with the teens filter for work, because if I'm working from home and I have to be on camera, I'm like, I'm not putting on makeup, so I put on a filter.
Yeah.
And I only discovered that recently, and I was like, is this what people have been doing?
Yes.
Zoom, you can pull a dial.
Oh, there's a slider?
There's a slider of, like, how... it's called, like, touch up.
How yassified?
Well, it's
you
not
wanna
a
be?
yassify. It's, like, pore removal.
Oh.
Oh.
And
well,
I think it, like, I don't know if it reshapes your face at all. Those are the ones that really freak me out. But, like, you'll see,
I
you
want
know,
like a pore maximizing filter.
no.
just, well, they have those. It's usually like a clarity or like a saturation one. Because I'll
I'm
see
gonna
that
start
one.
doing
That's
that.
so mean.
Because I, like, can, you know, I
The
edit.
anti-substance.
Like, I edit photos and it's like, you can turn that up to try to, like, unblurry something.
Oh, yeah,
But
yeah,
it just,
okay.
it, like, every crag in a person's face just becomes, like, a crater.
I like that. I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. There's all the tools at your
I'm mean
disposal.
enough to myself already. I don't need it.
But it's like, I get that it's complicated. Because on the one hand, let people look how they want to look. And and don't, like, investigate them. Like, you're doing some kind
Right.
of, like,
Public service.
Yes, like, oh, it's my job to say that, you know, Madonna is actually a lizard-looking freak because it's lying to the public. And it's like, honestly,
Like, is it? Is it lying?
like,
Well, it's lying if they're saying, "Oh, I've had nothing done," and they really have.
Yeah.
But
the Kardashians were getting some flack for that. I think they've come maybe more clean about it.
maybe
Somewhat, but they used to kind of be like, no,
Yeah.
I've never had anything done, and it's like,
well, you
well,
look like totally different.
right.
We know.
And
Yeah.
so there is that side
Like,
of
you
it.
were on TV before those procedures, so like,
Right.
Like, there's that
You're
side
on
of
the simple
it
life, Kim.
where, like, you know, we were in high school during one of the most sort of, like, difficult to achieve physical trends, which I think of as sort of the, like, Paris Hilton or even, like, the Tara Reid,
Yes.
where it's, like, long torsos that are
Mhm.
impossibly thin.
with the low-rise jeans.
Low-rise jeans.
No fat goes over.
Right.
There's no, yeah.
There's only one body type that looks okay in those low-rise jeans, and it is like as close to 0% body fat as you can get.
Yes, and even when I was in high school, I was borderline underweight, and I thought I was super fat because I just did not look like that.
And that was the time.
And
like,
it's not even, and now it's even worse because you can look at, you know, aspirational. Oh, I'm looking at these TikTok influencers, and their bodies literally do not exist, or are extremely rare in reality, where it's like Jessica Rabbit-esque, or just so long and thin that they look like Slender Man. And so, like, it's a complicated issue, and I don't know what's right or what's wrong, but I do think a lot of it has to do with the outward projection is where things start getting really like dicey. So like Demi Moore's character feels insecure, at least from our point of view within the movie, because of Dennis Quaid kind of telling her to be.
Yeah, because she actually seems, I mean, we don't see her too much before she gets fired, but she seems to just be bopping along doing her thing. Yeah, I mean, she's lived on camera for so long, and she seems fine with it. It's not like she finishes filming and then goes and like stares at herself in the mirror and like pinches her fat. You know, I think another movie may have had a scene like that to show us like, oh, she's like doing the like, oh, what would I look like if my skin was tighter in the mirror? Movies love to do that scene.
It's instead of starting the movie with the Hollywood star, it starts her like leaving the plastic surgeon.
Exactly, like she's just gotten her Botox or whatever. I just
got my third round of Botox and fillers and blah, blah, blah.
And to that point, I don't think she would have been as receptive to the old high school person. But she was already just so crushed and defeated, and he was giving her, you were the most beautiful person in high school, and you're still the most beautiful person ever, and like...
Well, and I think there's something to be said for that guy in the sense that it felt more like, oh, my high school crush, and she still looks great, and here she is, as opposed to like, it's a movie star, like TV star, like who I used to know. Because he didn't even really mention, when he mentioned her, he was like, you've been so successful, but he didn't seem especially to like value her for that as much. But that is maybe my main point, is that I think this is such a amazing and heart-wrenching depiction of somebody who has learned to only value themselves for their beauty and their appearance and youth.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that, you don't have any, even though from everything we can tell, I mean, like she won an Oscar, so she's talented. She seems pretty intelligent. There's no moment, you know.
She's not bitchy. Or
no, like she seems
mean
pretty nice and reasonably smart and obviously talented and driven.
She's like nice to the crew.
Right.
She's polite.
Yeah, she's very, So, and that's what I think is so tragic, is that she actually does have a lot of great qualities that I wish that she valued, but she can't even, it's like those don't contribute to her self-esteem at all, because the only thing is what she looks like. She is her own idol. Because, like, you can see it, her giant
portrait
behind her, and then herself in the snow globe. And I thought there was such an amazing, so many, in my opinion, brilliant visual metaphors in this movie. Outside of her giant window in her apartment, like the entire wall is a window with a view of the city, and there's a huge billboard. Once she gets the substance and Sue is... Okay, so Elizabeth Demi Moore gets fired from her TV show, and she sees an ad in the paper looking for, do you want to be the next Elizabeth Sparkle? If you're young, if you're 18 to 30 only.
I noticed 30 was the cutoff.
Yeah, 30 was the cutoff.
I noticed that for some reason.
Yeah, they don't want middle-aged people like us on that show.
Only young people apply.
But yeah, so once Sue, and we didn't even mention, played by Margaret Qualley.
Which, again, I don't even know if this is on purpose, but casting a Nepo baby, like someone who's, again, sort of like...
And daughter of like an actor model, like who is,
the spawn of, just not to, I don't normally talk about children that way, but like, you know, she...
Yes, you do.
I don't call people like crotch goblins and Spawn. I'm not one of those child-free people.
You are, but that's okay.
Am I?
It's okay.
Oh. I don't mean
We'll
to
let the listeners decide.
Oh, okay.
It's cute. Don't worry about it.
Well, I really don't try to be that way, but
I don't feel like hate in your heart when you say that.
Right. I don't want to watch or touch your kid, but I don't dislike your child.
Sure.
And I'm not one of those people who's like, ew, breeders.
No, you're not like that.
Yeah. But basically, having someone who is the child of a actress model, to me it feels like something.
Yeah.
It sure does. I feel all of the casting in this was very intentional, and I was thinking today, like, if they hadn't gotten Demi Moore, who would have played that role?
I mean, there's any
I came
number.
I came up with one actor who I thought would maybe be like the best fit, even though it's not, the narrative isn't the same. But I was like, I could definitely have seen Jennifer Connelly do this role, and I think she would have been good, and I think it would have worked. But it wouldn't have had the same, because Demi Moore has been so discussed for so long in regards to like plastic surgery.
Well, what I was saying is, I think someone like oh God, what's her name? Courtney Cox.
She was the other one I thought of.
Or
Courtney
even,
Cox.
and I think this one maybe is too far gone, but even like a Meg Ryan, although I don't think she has the acting chops for this.
But I could see, yeah, that's maybe why I said Jennifer Connelly, because I'm like, I think she has the chops as well for it.
She can.
Well, I don't know
I was
about
going to say, can she even be in a movie with Dennis Quaid? I don't know.
Oh, good point.
Do they have a history?
Yeah. They have a child together.
Who does?
And a divorce to separate.
Wait, which one of those people we listed?
Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid.
Oh,
Yeah,
do
you're
they?
she's talking about Meg
What's his
Ryan.
face from The Boys?
Yeah, Jack Quaid.
Oh.
Quaid.
And yeah, well, there is that funny quote. This is so relevant, but that funny quote of Dennis Quaid being like, "I'm trying to be like a reverse nepo. Like, I'm trying to be a nepo dad. Like, I want Jax to get me a job."
Well,
Which I thought was funny.
maybe stop stumping for Trump.
Yep.
Or not. But, I mean, The Boys, not to go back again, but The Boys is one of those shows where in season 3, they slapped such an insane filter on, what's her name, Starlight?
Yeah.
And it's like, she's someone who's clearly struggling.
That makes me so sad. Erin Moriarty.
Hasn't she been just brutally bullied?
Yes.
Yeah, and
For years only.
she clearly has some kind of disordered eating problem, and it's none of our business, but
Oh, it really
her
breaks my heart.
entire, like, she's become sort of like a circus sort of freak in the way that people talk about her, and it's all been so public, and then having her cast like in the show, and then just like them dealing with it in ways that are just, I don't know what would be right, but it's probably not that, because it can't make you feel better to see, and I haven't seen the newest season, but I heard they sort of talk about it in that one too. But it's like, it's not just for older women, but I think there's just this entire sort of like, you're a loaf of bread on the shelf, and you're, waiting to be tossed out because you're getting moldy.
And like, you can't win, because if you don't have any work done, then you're just old.
Right, you get
Like,
cast
you
as
still
a crone.
and you will still get hate online from people.
Yeah, you look
Like, wow, they look like shit.
Yes, exactly.
And then if you get work done, then they're like, wow, plastic face, like,
There's
Botox freak.
There's
you can't
no
win.
There's no way to
Like,
age.
women
as
cannot
a woman.
win.
I
Yeah.
was just talking to my mom and husband about Sydney Sweeney, because I read something about she'd like got this new home. Obviously the paparazzi won't leave her alone, and she's gorgeous. We know about Sydney Sweeney, and she posts
She
bikini
defeated the
pictures, too.
woke.
But
the dumbest pop culture moment out of so many.
But it's part of the same problem.
It is.
But the paparazzi, she was saying that they were approaching her family going, just tell her to come out in her bikini, we'll take pictures, and once you do that, we'll leave. And I'm like...
And then you had that film executive who was like, Sydney Sweeney's actually ugly.
What?
Literally, in some, like, unprompted, this woman just, like, said that about Sydney Sweeney, who wasn't, I don't think, like, even the topic of anything.
It's just fucking wild and fucking awful.
Ugh.
And I'm like, how do people exist? But, Yeah.
Not well, as this movie shows.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it is generally, like, and genuinely a brave performance in a lot of ways by Demi Moore, and I don't mean that in the, that's so brave,
Yeah, that's what I was...
condescending
Yeah.
sort of way,
I
because
agree.
she is an incredible actor. I think that a lot of people, as you said, Brett, are going to talk about how well done this performance is. I am a little black-pilled about horror being recognized by the Academy, because if Toni Collette is not getting the Oscar nod for Hereditary, then it is all just made up bullshit.
What is, and that's why I'm like, if Demi Moore were to get a nomination, it's because of the narrative and everything else surrounding it.
They like,
there have been other performances just as deserving.
they like stories about Hollywood, and this is very much.
They like a comeback story,
And they like people putting on a lot of weird makeup and shit.
Yeah, like, you could compare it to, like, Charlize Theron for Monster. Love a beautiful woman making herself unattractive, because that's brave.
It is.
Bravery.
And it is. And that's the thing, is it
I
is.
live that bravery every day. Sorry.
I'm actually super beautiful.
Yeah.
And I just put on my Crone prosthetics.
Your Crone drag.
Or I draw the lines on my
That's what I'm saying. I turn that clarity slider all the way up.
Yeah.
I'm craggy as the day is long. Also, something I noticed is that Elizabeth only has one chair at her kitchen table.
Oh.
She has nothing in her life except
being
her body, basically. And that's not the way it has to be, but that's the way that she's allowed her life to become.
It's all
by
her,
what she values and what society has told her to value. Because this is also, maybe more than anything, in my opinion, the male gaze, the movie. The camera is leering at these women.
Yeah.
The camera's like up Margaret Qualley's asshole on multiple occasions,
and
basically.
sometimes very much part of the plot.
Yep.
Right. And it's about like these like women, especially in Hollywood, see themselves through that lens of the male gaze. Like they have internalized it. It's no longer about how I feel or what I actually look like. It's like, how am I perceived by men? Like, am I sexually desirable? And so it's almost like the camera in this movie is the male gaze, but it's the woman's like internalized perception of the male gaze. It's like she knows how she's being looked at. And that's all she can see.
Eyes are so much a part of this movie.
Yes.
Because it is really, it's not even just about like her body. It's about the way that she is like, one of the scenes that was most impactful for me, and I just really can relate.
I know what you're talking about. We all probably know.
It's like when she's getting ready for the date.
Of course, it's like the one non-horror scene, and yet it might be the one that will stick with you the most, because it is, and I, especially on a second watch, like was basically crying during that scene.
I think I held my breath the whole time.
Oh, she is so lonely, like she's just watching Sue go live her life, basically. And she's got nothing to do with sitting around in her apartment, so she calls that guy.
Because she chooses not to leave her apartment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although she is croning a bit at this point.
Well, and she has learned that she can terminate this at any time, but she will not return, like she will stay as croned as she is, that you can't reverse it. But she wouldn't lose anymore. Like she could end this and just like kill Sue.
But at that point, she still sees herself, and that's so much part of this, is by that point in the movie, she sees herself as a crone. Mm-hmm. Even though we see
beautiful Demi Moore.
Normal people see Demi Moore as gorgeous.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, she's so beautiful.
That's why I said, like, sorry, haggard old crone, Demi Moore.
Right. But like,
so gorgeous.
But I think it's such a good casting because she does look her age. I don't think that this...
Well,
also, she's 62.
I was going to say, she's like 62 playing 50 in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's believable.
It is.
It is. Like, because there are other actresses that have had... Either they've aged in a certain way, or I'm only seeing them filtered, or they've had better work done, or whatever, where they look way younger. But, like, she looks like she's aging gracefully and normally, but she clearly has had some work done.
Yes. And a lot of that was the lighting, because you could really see, like, she looked so, like, perfect in that opening scene in the TV studio where she's giving the workout, because it's got that, like, soft, sort of round lighting. And then a lot of the bathroom, like the harsher overhead, you see a lot more of like skin texture.
Which, I mean, I assume is also, thinking from the character, I'm like, that's probably purposeful too. Because it's like, she needs to see what's going on, find details for exactly what's wrong to...
Yeah.
Oh, see, I disagree. I think it's like the fable. It's like, it's that lighting because we are seeing her extremely... like nitpicky perspective of how she, like, I don't think the lighting would really be that harsh.
Well, maybe we learned something about me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's left up to interpretation. So that scene, going back to it.
Right. So yeah, and feeling vulnerable, she decides to take that guy up on his offer to get a drink. And so
because she now sees herself as on his level.
Yes, because she was like not really gonna, she was perfectly polite to him, you know, when they ran into each other, but she was clearly not going to call him. She was not entertaining actually going on a drink.
She was a little offended, I think, that he thought he had a chance. Yeah.
And now it's like, yeah, that's exactly it. Now she thinks that like they're in the same league. And so she's getting ready for her date. And she does her makeup. And she just like cannot leave the apartment. She keeps like adding a scarf, taking it off, applying more makeup, taking it off.
But that's not what it is. What it is that she is mimicking the youthful makeup and choices of her other self. Because she sees this giant fucking billboard of Sue, and she's like seeing Sue on the TV, and it's like she's seeing, oh, the lighter lipstick looks younger, like this dress is more revealing, and then she's like, no, I'm a crone. So it's like cover the neck, because you can see age in necks a lot of the time.
Change to a darker lipstick.
The darker, more matronly lipstick. And it's like...
Also, she sees her reflection in the doorknob. So it's not a real reflection.
Yes.
It's like, that's like, by one moment she's like going to leave and she sees her face distorted in the doorknob.
It's like a funhouse sort of mirror.
And so she's seeing the airbrushed billboard of Sue facing forward. And then at the back of her apartment, away from the window, she's seeing her own super distorted reflection. It's like, neither is reality. Like,
exactly.
Sue is airbrushed, she is in a doorknob.
But I think that's literally
mirror.
What we're talking about when we talk about like how, because to me this is
visual
so
metaphor.
Much about, it's not just about social media, but it is really about social media to me. Like my interpretation of this for my own life, where it's like what I see that Sue billboard, that's not real.
Right.
You know, the airbrush, no pores, they show like if you go on like Instagram reality, which is kind of a toxic cesspool, but it can be really, eye-opening.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
where it's like they'll show the two pictures next to each other, and it's like the same celebrity, and they look gorgeous in both, but one of them you can see they're airbrushed, their arms are taken in, and it's like it's almost so subtle that like if I saw either on the street, I'd be like, whoa, but like even they are picked apart in this way. So it's like, that's not real. That billboard is not real, but also what she is seeing of herself, the actual, because like the croning, the disgusting foot and the disgusting hand, like that's not even real either, right?
Yeah.
Like it's literal in the fable.
Yes.
But like she's becoming grosser as Sue is taking over her life and is becoming more of a presence and is stealing away whatever confidence she had left as she's comparing herself to something she cannot go back to.
Yes.
You cannot reverse time like that yet. But like, no matter how good you look and how much you work out and how much work you have done and, how you dress, if you're 50, you're not going to look 29. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
It is. I mean, that's it. And so, like, that scene is just so heartbreaking because I find myself doing the same thing where it's like I'm putting on different clothes. I'm second-guessing myself. I look in the mirror that I have, in my bedroom, which is slightly tilted, makes me look a little bit thinner. And then it's like I go in my bathroom and I'm like, and it's like I'm changing. And
I just use the doorknob to get ready. That's my mirror.
Look at the distorted doorknob reflection. But it's like so.
And I do look terrible in the doorknob reflection.
It's just so, it has so much to say, and it never says it out loud. But everyone who isn't, I guess, a fucking dumbass can watch that scene and get it. Like.
Oh yeah, and it is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It is so thematically rich, and it's maybe, I think of it as the centerpiece of the movie in a lot of ways. Like it's sort of the midpoint, and it is really where we see her go from disappointed but maybe hopeful of like, well, at least like I'm getting to live vicariously through Sue and she's kind of me, to like she doesn't even go on the date. She's just sitting in the dark on her bed, like wrapped in a bathrobe.
She takes too long to get ready.
She misses it.
And then she just messes it all up and is just doing what can only be described as like self-destructive behavior.
Oh yeah, well, even just like the way she's removing her makeup, she's like swiping her face so violently. And apparently that scene took like a day to film, and her face was like
red,
raw by the because she was really, really going for it. And I
Worth it.
It's so worth it because
Yeah.
it's so sad. Also, I have so many more themes if we want to go.
Let's
just
keep
briefly.
going.
So one that I noticed was commentary on like just like older people and the elderly. Like Sue literally builds a room to like hide Elizabeth away, and like it's like sort of like a retirement community type of thing of like we just shut our elderly away where we don't have to look at them and think about them. And
I will say,
and
sorry, I was happy
yeah.
that Sue finally was like, let me move the body from the horrible bathroom floor.
But I think it's very notable because,
I
like,
thought so too.
because at
But
first
yeah,
I was thinking, oh, put her in bed.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But they never see each other throughout the entire movie. They never get to the point where they actually care for
They don't.
their other.
No.
I mean, Demi Moore cares for her other in the
as
sense,
an extension of herself and,
And
her
that she
own
created
beauty.
her.
Yeah.
So.
I thought the same thing. I was like, my toxic trait is thinking that I could take the substance and I would simply give my older self a big hug and say thank you for everything.
tuck them into
Tuck
bed.
them into bed. Right. Just like give
Switch,
them a little kiss on the cheek and be like,
switch,
I'm doing
like,
this for
yeah.
us.
I'd switch like 5 hours early.
Right. To just be like,
make sure they're okay.
yeah, exactly.
Give them, don't just stick them on the bathroom floor with like a towel under their head for 7 days straight with all their makeup still on.
Yep.
You're gonna wake up with a fucking like pink eye infection.
Yeah.
You can't be sleeping with the eye makeup on that long.
I also loved the absolute, I said, the absolute smorgasbord of basic white guys in this movie. Like, every single character, basically, except for, like, Elizabeth and Sue, the entire film crew of the workout show, they're all white men. All of the executives.
That was the funniest thing. Is
all
when
in the hallway with Dennis Quaid and, like, these elderly, leering, and disgusting white guys just, like, just like smirking and leering at her, and they're like, smile, pretty girls should always smile. And she gives them like a closed mouth smile because several of her teeth have fallen
teeth
out.
have come out at this point.
And they just wanted her to smile. Like Dennis Quaid just wanted her to smile just to make her do something, just to exert control over her. And they're all just like leering at her. And then they get distracted because the topless dancers are walking by with their feather boas, and he's
They're
just like,
ooh.
and Dennis Quaid literally goes, feathers, and they just run like cartoonishly, like a horny wolf, just like running after. They go awooga,
Yeah.
and their eyes pop out, and the tongue rolls onto the floor.
And they start floating.
Yeah, yeah, they would go full Pepe Le Pew. And also my sort of elderly theme is supported by what Sue says about her schedule. She said, I can only work every other week because I have to take care of my mom.
Yeah.
So it's all just like, I think that theme is so present.
And it really is. Like,
and it's also like the mother-daughter parallel of like, Elizabeth doesn't get to live it herself, but it's almost like vicarious of like pushing her daughter, but like, who's not her daughter, but literally in this case, an extension of herself to do the things that like she can't do. There's so much to this movie.
I want to give what's her name, Andie MacDowell, like truth serum, and ask her like what she thought about this movie.
I would be curious.
Or just like any of these. I guess Dennis Quaid said it, where it's like they're like, I have to wonder about all because we're living in it and it's always been this way. But like as we've gotten older, we are now seeing that like any movie I watch, I was saying that I was watching the new Salem's Lot, and that the star of it was like maybe the worst actor in it was Bill Pullman's son. And he was just doing kind of a Bill Pullman face the whole time. And it's like, same thing with like Wyatt Russell, who has appeared on this podcast before in our Overlord episode. Check it out.
Check it out.
I mean, I think he's talented. But again, a lot of times it feels like he's doing an impersonation of his dad. And it's like, I don't think that all of these Nepo babies are bad actors at all. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that a lot of them wind up in these roles because of their parents for whatever reason, right? Whether or not it's super direct, where it's like, hire my kid, producer, or if it's indirect, where, you know, they don't have to work a bunch of extra jobs and they don't burn out because they don't get their chance. Like, you know, they have infinite money, they can do whatever.
Right.
So to me, that's sort of vicarious, because it's interesting to me the fact that they really, while they are one, they are not sharing the experiences.
Right.
You know, Demi Moore is locked up in this
a
apartment.
pitch black room
Well,
behind the bathroom.
Right, but
Yeah.
even when she's in control,
Yes, that's true.
she's within this sort of prison that she's constructed for herself, and it does feel kind of like a gilded cage, but she makes it disgusting to spite herself.
Yes.
Right? Like there's so much self-loathing in this. And
it's such a clever way to be able to externally show like self-loathing and like inflicting violence upon yourself, to like split the self into two characters
and the
who are representative of one.
And the lie of the substance being symbiotic when it really is parasitic.
Yes.
You know, like it's literally you're pulling the life substance out of the original. This is not a symbiotic relationship.
And the only reason the original gets to have their 7 days is to re-up for...
Oh yeah, because they have to regenerate the spinal fluid.
It's the only reason that Sue brings back, at that point...
Oh, when like 3 months go by?
Fully cronified Demi Moore.
With some amazing makeup, but it is a shocking sight, especially the titties. The like long, thin, pendulous breasts.
Yes, it's all very extreme. And
a giant humpback and
the full like,
oh man, just
it's amazing.
Whatever like most exaggerated version of a crone you can think of in your head, that's
more.
what it. Yeah, it's more.
It's more than that. She and you could tell she's in there.
Oh yeah. Well, Mel, I was gonna say, I'm sure this was a treat for you.
It was.
You always talk about practical effects.
I love it.
And they fucking gave it all to you. Like this movie is one of the maybe most impressive examples of like body prosthetics in terms of practical effects like I've ever seen since like The Fly.
Even seeing the last version of Demi Moore that we see, which is just sort of the like face that's stuck on like the back of what was it called, the Monstro
Eliza Sue.
The Monstro Eliza Sue that's like stuck like mouth open
in like a scream
that's just there.
And again, Sue's face is forward like the billboard, and Demi's face is on the back like the portrait in the apartment.
Do we want to explain how we got to the monstrosity?
Oh yeah.
Well, so Sue is stealing time more and more, and then
it starts small, and then the show gets canceled. But it's because Dennis Quaid wants her to do the New Year's special. He wants her to host, and that's the biggest TV event in the world, I guess.
Biggest thing ever.
Yeah. It's the biggest thing ever. It's the show on the network.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she is so busy doing like magazine cover shoots and TV late night interviews that she just doesn't like switch back.
She can't take
She
every
is
week
stocked
off
up.
now.
She's filling up jars with the spinal fluid, and like 3 months go by.
Yeah, and then she tries to pull more out, and it's just nasty, like black.
Yeah, it's like not nearly a full vial, and it's like this like brownish yellowy.
You don't want to inject that in you.
No, and it's not going to help.
It's not good.
So she calls.
So of course she runs out right before this big event.
Yeah, the night before.
Of course.
And
I do, just to give a shout out to the concept of these like, I don't know, like white celebrities like calling the customer service line to complain was also just very funny.
It was funny. That was an ongoing thing. They both did it.
They were both doing it about each other to this nameless, again, probably just white guy that...
I kind of thought it might be the guy, the nurse guy.
It's possible.
Who like gave her the substance to begin with.
But yeah, so she's run out and the guy's like, you need to refill it. Like,
you have to switch back because that's the only way... You can get more stabilizer fluid.
Yeah.
You will have no other option.
You
literally
sucked out all the life from this
Bitch, you should have
raisin.
planned out on a calendar like Demi, like Elizabeth did.
That's true. Oh, also, the calendar. I don't know if you guys noticed. She writes Sue on each day of Sue and then just X's on each day for herself. as she's sitting in her one chair at her kitchen table. Yeah, this is like the funniest, most like horrifying movie that also is so sad.
It's so sad.
You'll never laugh more at a more sad movie than The Substance, because it is fucking heartbreaking. But yeah, so finally, after months of being locked away, Elizabeth is back, and she's
pissed.
She's so pissed. She's fully like Crone, as we were talking about. That's like the absolute like most wretched version of herself. And she decides that yes, she does want to terminate the experiment. She wants to get rid of Sue. She doesn't want to do the substance anymore.
She has to leave her house though to go get it.
And she wraps herself on up. She's like got the sunglasses and the scarf.
She looks like the Invisible Man.
She does.
Fully wrapped up.
I think that's probably a reference. And so she's like hurtling down the sidewalk to get it. She comes in. It's like sort of she's trying to reassert what's left of her own identity. Because she like drags Sue out into the living room. She's like put her portrait back. Like has dragged it down the hall from wherever it was.
Portrait.
Yeah. And she is injecting the termination serum that's going to kill her. And she injects like maybe 2/3 of it. And then she can't do it. She has like a breakdown. Is like, you're the only part of me I like. And basically that I've ever liked. And just like, please come back because that's all I have. And she doesn't even have it. That's like the cruelest thing is like, the only thing she has in her life is not in her life at all.
Yeah.
And so she tries to restart her Sue's heart. It doesn't quite take. So she tries to switch them back. And between the termination and the like switching, it ends up severing the connection. And Sue does wake up. So they're both awake at the same time. And Sue
and they live happily ever after. They hold hands
they
and
skip off into the sunset.
Yes, they start a show together. Me and my Crone.
Okay, I would watch that.
And that's the end of the movie. It's beautiful.
And we all,
go check it out.
And nobody's face gets smashed into a mirror a billion times before they're kicked to death.
Yeah, Sue murderizes Demi Moore's
and it's pretty hardcore.
Sue is strong. Like, not only is she better version of Elizabeth, but she's stronger.
She kicks her across the room.
Yeah, she seems maybe smarter, definitely more. I mean, she built a whole fucking room. I can't do that.
Right.
Well, again, Fable.
Fable, yeah. But
I think there is something to
it's
like her most beautiful, but also her most like ambitious and cunning self. Is Sue. But yeah, so a very, very violent scene. This is definitely, there's lots of other gross stuff, but this is the most like violent part of the movie. There's another part later that's pretty violent too, but this one is just so horrible because you're just watching the most like outward depiction of extreme self-loathing and self-destruction and self-harm that can possibly exist.
Because they are one.
Yeah, and you can see it in the physical acting, like how disgusted Sue is by Elizabeth, even though she made her this way.
Yeah.
It is horrible. But yeah, so she has killed her. And then it's time to get ready for the big New Year's show.
And before we get there, I do want to say one more thing this made me think about is like the way that maybe women are trained to be towards other women in industries like this, where it's like, you know, pitted against each other, exploitation. Like in this, yes, they're literally the same, but I think there's a reason why they didn't. Thank God they didn't do like a Demi Moore's de-aged creepy face on top of
that would have been horrible.
Yeah, like they don't look the same, even though they tell us they're the same.
Well, and to me, I don't even know if it's even supposed to be the same because it's like because they say you are the Matrix, everything comes from you. But I kind of took it as like the better, younger version of you, like, isn't even you.
Right.
And guess what?
It's unattainable.
Even she's not good enough.
Yes.
Right.
Because she starts having insecurities, and it's like, this is like the clone who's supposed to be perfection. And even she can't just, like, enjoy it.
But I do think that there's, like, I don't know, like like, not to make this about maybe, like, trans issues in a way, but, like, also, you know, it's just what I thought about. It's like people who pass, who become resentful of those who don't.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Or like people in Hollywood who are at their prime being disgusted and resentful of those who are no longer in it. Like, to me, they're...
Yeah, and
when,
that's made
when you're
really
on
apparent
when you're
in
on
the
top,
interview.
yeah, like when was there it mentioned in an interview?
Well, in the movie, the
yeah.
late night interview,
Oh, when
it's like,
she's
did you
talking.
watch Elizabeth Sparkle's show? And she's like, Jurassic Fitness, like that old bitch. I hate her, and I hope she dies.
I mean,
basically.
but it's like really, I think, like, while a lot of these problems are stemming from the male gaze, they are replicated and internalized and spit back out
exactly
by the people who ideally would be allies.
right.
Right? Like,
I agree.
and I'm sure that this happens both ways in Hollywood, where you have, you know, women supporting women, blah, 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 all that, right? But I do think there is also, and we've seen this a lot, I think, what I think of is when the Harvey Weinstein sort of story was becoming more public.
Also, what is Dennis Quaid's character name in this movie?
What is it?
Harvey.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it is.
Well,
I didn't even pick up on that.
Yep.
so that actually is, then I'm right.
You are.
But yeah, like when the news was coming out that he was, you know, sexually assaulting women in order to, again, probably just to feel powerful.
Mm-hmm. The casting couch
Sort of thing. And that there were, or this happened with Jeffrey Epstein, where there's women that are important parts of this cycle of abuse.
Like they're complicit to some extent, or they know.
Or they shame women who, are you okay?
No.
There are other
Sam's
women.
getting beaten to death by a clone, but we're just gonna ignore that.
There are, you know, women that are part of this issue.
Yes.
Right? And they are also victims of the same male gaze. And honestly, allying yourself with the problem does not spare you.
Right.
At the end of the day.
No, it does
not. Like, you can become part of the problem, but you are not spared from it. And that's such a thing that I see so much within my own life. And you see it, you know.
Is it me?
No. But just like, or like the LGB without the T, right? We were talking about that.
That's true.
Or like the idea of, oh, these people pass and these people don't, and you're resentful of the people who you are like, oh, well, they make the community look bad because the people who were never going to accept you anyway are leering at them.
Yes.
Like
a Caitlyn Jenner. I'm thinking like a Candace Owens, just certain people who
useful clowns for you know the enemy.
Right.
And it's like,
but they're like, oh, but if I ally myself with them,
like at the end of the day, Caitlyn Jenner is never going to be anything more than a useful freak to the Republicans.
Yep.
But and part of me is sympathetic because it is not easy being the first like notable trans woman, I'm sure. But like burning the bridge behind you when you're honestly still on that bridge is fucking stupid.
It is.
And self-destructive.
Yep.
And it can be read as nothing
very destructive
else
to
me.
others.
Yes. And it is not, in my opinion, freeing you from culpability.
Right, exactly. It's like, I have sympathy, but also I condemn that behavior as well.
Like Sue is...
But it's complicated.
Sue is the villain. She is also the victim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Harvey is the villain.
Yeah.
Right? And Demi Moore is the victim, but she is also the main villain to herself. You know, it's so complicated. And we as the audience are also...
We're the villain.
Villains.
which is made so clear in that New Year's show
Yes.
scene.
Yeah.
We are
I
in the
thought.
audience
Right.
watching, getting sprayed with viscera and
Well, and that's why I was
blood
like, that to me
volcanoes.
felt like almost like her indictment of the audience is like the blood was a very like literal way of just like, you have blood on your hands, like you, the audience who like wants this type of thing,
yeah.
who wants to see these like beautiful, perfect bodies, and like you buy the tickets, and that's why like the industry wouldn't be like that if people weren't willing to pay for it, but we are.
Look what
so
it
like
took for her to get here for them.
You, the audience, who said, "Oh, Demi Moore, where's she been?"
Right. You're the villain in this movie.
Yeah, it's all of us.
And by you, I mean, yeah, all of us. Like, I am. I'm the villain of this movie.
The consumer.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the person watching the late night show, the person watching the movie.
I love that type of thing where it really turns the blame onto, like, the audience.
Yeah.
To some extent. I just love that. I love to sit in that discomfort and be like, I'm the problem.
There's a hallway that's very symbolic in this movie, and when we first see the
it's
hallway,
right outside the TV studio.
It's right outside the studio, and when we first see the hallway, it's just years and years of posters of Elizabeth, and then they all get taken down, and then there's like one, and then I think maybe like two.
They add a second one like
for the New Year's.
Yeah, it's like the exercise show on one side, and then eventually the New Year's show on the other.
For Sue, and we see how quickly she can expire because she has stepped over Elizabeth to take what to her in this moment feels like a lifetime, a hallway full of opportunity, even though the hallway ends. But like for her, it's like, oh, my hallway, my life is ahead of me.
Like, I'm gonna fill up all of this empty space with my achievements and my beauty,
and not think about what the consequences are
when I get to the end of the hallway.
Right. Once you get to the end of the hallway, or once you get to the end
Like
of your jars of serum.
18 to 30. Let's
18
think
to
back to that newspaper ad.
And the woman cast in this is like in her late 20s.
Yeah.
This is not Neon Demon where she looks like she's like 18.
Right.
Right. Because that's another movie I kept thinking about.
I agree.
Because that's also about sort of like consumption. Also very literal in that movie.
Yes.
But basically it gets to the point where she's falling apart in her desperation.
Yeah, she's like getting ready for the show, but her teeth are falling out, her ear falls off.
Her nails
front teeth. So
yeah,
not
her
just
front
any,
teeth. No,
it's her front teeth fall out.
One molar
Right.
gone, you can fake it.
Yeah,
Right.
But the first tooth to come out is right there in the front. It's like one of the canines.
And like you're hosting.
You're hosting.
You can't do without front teeth.
Hours before.
Yeah, because they're like, we need you on the stage right now for lighting. But instead, since she's falling apart, she's like, I know what I have to do, basically. And she, in her big ass dress, which I loved this, and it reminded me of Midsummer, actually, because it's such a huge dress. Like it's like the flower slug dress at the end of that movie, I felt. And she's moving in it similarly. So she runs home. She's rifling through. She's like about to die because she's she's truly falling apart. And she finds the activator serum, which you may remember.
You're not supposed to use it more than once.
Use only once, then discard. But still has it. She says, I just need a better version of me. And she injects it.
And we get the best version.
Yeah.
And we get what essentially to me feels symbolically like, in my opinion, the celebrities who it's like, oh, they've gone too far with their plastic surgery. They've become monstrous, right? Which is not. It's not even like I'm thinking of one specific person at this point. It's
we could all think of examples, but yeah, it's that.
You at home, whoever you're thinking of. Yep, them.
Yeah, them and others.
It's like, or like the Michael Jackson. Like someone who it's like become this unsustainable.
And it's maybe the first thing you think of when you think of them instead of their talent or achievements. You think, oh, what have they done to themselves?
Right. Oh, what a shame. That kind of thing. And truly becomes this blob monster that is a lot of parts, hands sticking out of weird parts, Demi Moore's head on the back screaming. Yeah,
there's like teeth somewhere that are like biting a boob, kinda. Like there's an ear up here,
nothing's
and where it's supposed to
ear
be
down there. Well, and that's a call, and they show it to us, which I appreciate because it was a long movie, but like there's a callback to the beginning where there's these two gross, as you said, sort of general white dudes.
Them, the fucking neighbor across the hall, like
God.
everyone, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, and that's who everything is for, right?
Exactly.
Is this generic
mediocre white guy.
And
they are the judges. They have all the power. They judge, like, are you fuckable or not?
Is everything where it's supposed to be?
Right, because she walks in. Well, there's tons of callbacks that are paid off later. But yeah, in that one, so first of all, the girl before her leaves. Like, she's a good dancer. Too bad her tits aren't in the middle of her face instead of that nose. And then Sue walks in and they say, oh, looks like everything's where it's supposed to be. And then in her
foreshadowing.
Yeah, in her Monstro Eliza Sue form, everything is where it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yes, it's all wrong.
It's all very wrong, and it is haunting to see Demi Moore's face on her back in that, like, silent scream.
Yeah.
But also it's this weird, it's almost like beautiful and tragic and funny, like almost like moment of acceptance. Yeah. It's the first time where she just kind of looks at herself in the mirror and she's just like putting the earrings in.
She's jamming like an earring just like into her
into the side
flesh,
of her head.
Because there's no lobe to stick it through.
And like she puts the dress on.
She's like, I look great.
Tapes it on up and then she cuts out the
because
from Elizabeth's portrait. Yeah,
even her, she's like, oh, I can be beautiful, and she picks Elizabeth's face, which I think is interesting.
I thought so too, and so she wears the like Elizabeth's face from the portrait as like a mask, and she returns to the studio, and she's a big hit.
She gets on the stage.
She sure does. Yeah, well, first she's like hallucinating kind of in the hallway as she's walking in that all these people are there, and they're like, we love you. You belong here. You'll always belong here. And it's that same hallway that we mentioned with the posters of her. And then we see that's not true. Then she goes on stage. The audience is just like shocked into silence as she just stands before them. There's a recurring motif of like the harsh light, harsh studio light. So we see that she's fully in the spotlight.
For everybody to examine and pick apart.
They start screaming, call her a monster, and then...
they do, like, King Kong
over
the top, like, pointing and screaming, which was very funny.
That was really good.
I started laughing from basically that moment until the end.
Yeah, but then it was also sad because she's like, it's still me. I'm Sue. I'm Elizabeth.
But she's not saying it like that. She's like,
yeah, no, it's like,
and there's like subtitles.
Yes. And not only do they call her a monster, then two guys get on stage and start beating the shit out of her to kill the monster.
Yeah.
Oh, but not before. She vomits a boob out of an eye socket on her face. And that's a callback to what the casting director said. Too bad her boobs aren't in the middle of her face instead of that nose.
Yep.
And then there is a boob in the middle of her face, and it plops to the ground.
And I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
No.
And so they, like, beat her, and they kind of, like, whack her, like, head off. But then she's such a mutated monster, like, she, like, kind of grows another one, but she's now, like, spraying blood.
On everybody.
And it's an endless amount of blood. Just, like, it's a geyser. The entire audience is soaked, including... the small child.
I was about to say, yeah.
And I was like, what do you think that girl took away as a lesson from witnessing that moment?
And again...
And it's so, like, it's not, the movie's not beating you over the head with that point, but it's like, it's so obvious what it's saying by including that little girl in the audience.
When we were in high school, I would go on to PerezHilton.com and I would see his Britney Spears, like, death count where he was, like, counting down until he thought she was going to commit suicide.
Yep.
And he would, like, draw me. I think he's, like, try to apologize for this at this point. But, like, but it was so of its time where it was just, like...
And that was a very popular blog. This was not some niche thing. Like, I would go on Perez Hilton sometimes.
Yeah, it was like a huge blog.
And he'd wite, like, fat whore on people's, like, faces.
Yeah, and it was like...
that was pop culture. We were just like, oh, this is normal.
That was what we were consuming, you know? It was like, Or like I see this now on TikTok where it's like showing like old clips from America's Next Top Model.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like that spotlight
Tyra Banks,
shining...
one of history's greatest monsters.
Right.
Who's also a victim.
Again, yes.
Mhm.
Perpetrating the thing that she was successful at, she's now... Or who was that other one that was like so insane? Older woman, brown hair...
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
Angie, is that what you're talking about? Dickinson?
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking of.
Janet Dickinson?
Angie.
It's Angie?
I think. I could be wrong. That's who I'm picturing. She's got dark hair and...
Janice Dickinson.
Oh, okay.
Is who I'm talking about.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like these people who have survived the gauntlet and are now like hazing, basically.
Oh.
But
I mean, America's Next Top Model got into, like, torture, basically.
yes, like literally like putting these women through transformations that didn't look good, were painful.
They gave a girl a gap between her teeth. They filed her fucking teeth down so she would have a gap.
But that's the thing now with the...
And there was someone else who they closed her
removed
gap.
it.
Veneers.
Closed it, yeah.
But now it's like with veneers, right? It's like you see every female celebrity is like has big fake teeth. The men
Emphasis
are not...
on big. I don't know why they always make them so big.
Yeah, they're not... They
It's
don't
too
look
big.
great. These big white porcelain teeth that are... If you have to file... Again, it's like so perfect for this movie. You have to file down the tooth into like a nub to put these caps on.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this, look it up. Google what people's actual teeth have to look like to get veneers.
And so
'Cause
you're
they file them down to
destroying-
weird little, like...
You're destroying perfectly fine teeth most of the time. I'm not talking about like people who did meth and their teeth fell off and they need dentures to feel good about themselves again. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have perfectly good fucking fine teeth.
Yes.
And they're like told you need these big porcelain things in your mouth because your teeth are too yellow, they're not straight enough. All this, to me, it's like this movie so
I
perfect.
just loved how he looked at me. Your teeth are too yellow. I took it personally. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Sorry.
I'm just trying to look at people when I talk to them,
Yeah,
and you're
okay.
one of two people in this
Oh,
room.
well, you know.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like that little girl is this director, right? It's us
Yeah,
watching.
right.
We all grew up seeing the same fucking shit. Because this is not new,
No.
right? Like this has always been a thing with female celebrity.
Right. When it's like that girl, like she's seeing like this female celebrity is like everyone's telling her she's a monster and they're committing so much violence against her.
And this little girl's dressed up like Sue.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
the posters have been, the big
Right.
ball gown
She's wearing the like
thing.
Cinderella dress
Yeah.
that Sue is wearing.
She is so excited. This little girl's there where
Ugh.
there's, this big event and there are topless women dancing, which is, I guess, fine. But, like, she's the one child here also.
Right.
Like,
But she needs to be there to bear witness.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. She'll be the star. Her character will be the star of The Substance too.
I'm ready.
Oh, I was like,
But yeah, it's like that, definitely that idea of like, oh, you get older, you are either supposed to like become part of the problem or you go get locked in the dark room and you get out of the way because
Yeah.
people don't want to look at you. It's gross and it makes them feel bad.
Right.
So fuck off. You
Yep.
know, it's like, or you can play grandmas and crones.
Yep.
That's your other choice. Like there's so many celebrities who it's like they reach, it's not as bad anymore, but for the longest time it's like you reach like 35 or 40 and you're like, well, now you get to play like old unfuckable women,
Yes.
you know.
I think of, so I actually like this sketch. It's from Inside Amy Schumer, the Amy Schumer sketch show, and it's Last Fuckable Day.
oh,
And it's like, I think it's like Tina Fey and like Patricia Arquette and a few other people talking about like, oh, it's so freeing. Like when they decided I wasn't fuckable anymore and like now I don't, it's
as much
it's really
as
good. It's funny, but
Amy
it's...
Schumer is a terrible person, that sketch show has some really funny
And
ones.
I was just going to say, I'm like,
The
I
one where
kind of
they-
love her sketch show.
The one
It's
where
very
it's
funny.
the boy band and they're like, you don't need any makeup, and they take it off and they're like, oh, maybe put this back on
Yeah.
and this back on. It's very funny. Too bad about her politics,
I
though.
agree.
But okay, we have to wrap this up at some point.
Yeah, so Sue flees the Monstro, Eliza Sue, flees the scene. She's
Actively disintegrating.
disintegrating,
falling apart.
just falling apart. She's on the sidewalk, and finally she just tips over and splatters and melts all over the sidewalk.
And there's like a face that's
And the
God.
Elizabeth face that was like on her back, I guess, now is just, which in the very first scene of Elizabeth, she's leading her workout and she says, "Do you want to look like a jellyfish on the beach?"
Yeah, she
And
looks
then
like
she
a
looks
jellyfish.
like kind of like a jellyfish with her face on it. And that last little bit of like whatever's left of Elizabeth, it's her face, but like whatever's left of like her consciousness, whatever, the only thing she can think of like
to crawl to
is to
her
crawl to her star, her own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And
look up at the
oh, I love this
the
because she's like
stars.
looking up at the stars and you kind of think it's like a finally like maybe a peaceful moment of like acceptance, but then instead of looking at the stars, she sees the glitter from the snow globe. And that like obscures her actual view of the stars. And that's the last thing she sees before she
just
disintegrates. And then it's just mopped up like the ketchup at the beginning. Now she's the ketchup and they just wipe her off the sidewalk and there's no more Elizabeth, there's no more Sue, there's just a cracked and broken and neglected Hollywood star.
So, what do we loathe? Society.
Yeah, society.
There you
I
go.
gotta say, that's the real takeaway. Also, I found it very fitting that her like going away present of like, oh, we all
Oh,
chipped
yeah.
in and got you this is a cookbook. Because I felt it was like, well, since you're not fuckable anymore, you're not the maiden anymore. So now you're the mother hurtling to Crone. Just like now you just cook and you're in the domestic part of your life. You're not fuckable anymore. Now you make the food. Now you're
like,
mom, even though you don't have a child.
And it's like food for people who it's like all like really like rich,
really
Yeah.
elaborate recipes, very
Yeah.
rich food.
but
It's a lot of
filled with,
pate
like,
and
it's a lot of organ meat.
yes,
It's like
eviscerate
Just
the turkey.
Yeah, oh my
Yeah.
god.
And she's rage eviscerating the turkey while listening to Sue's interview and mocking her, and I love that scene.
it's so
pretty
good.
great.
She's like, "Oh, did you?"
I hope she had a lot of fun during that scene.
I bet she did. And then she's got the egg beater thing, and like the eggs are just
Yeah.
flying into her face.
Oh, it's great.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, Loathe Society for
Loathe
sure.
Society. we
Society
all
sounds
agree?
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it gay? Kind of. In just that, like, it is a woman so obsessed with her body and the other woman's body. And that is the driving force of the entire movie. So even though it's herself, I still say it's a bit gay.
I mean, it never seems like any of the women in the movie, which is two people basically, are interested
Literally.
in men. They're interested in how the men are perceiving them.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
So I'm gonna say not super gay, one activator.
Yeah, I'll say one tit vomited out of an eye socket.
I was gonna mention the tit again. Okay.
You can mention the tit.
One Elizabeth face on a
One jellyfish on the beach.
One jellyfish on the beach. One jellyfish on the star.
Yeah.
Yeah, not super gay.
No, but
it's not as much as the movie is so much about the male gaze and sex. It's not. It's not about that
Yes.
at all.
Right.
Even
It's not
though
about
that's the
women's
focus.
sexual desire at all.
Sure
it
is
does
not.
not factor
Sure is
in
not.
at all. Which I think, again, very insightful.
To me, that's really hetero.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, and let me just say, before we end, I am so impressed by Coralie
Oh my
Fargeat.
god.
Between these two films, I'm just like, we've had so many amazing horror directors knocking it out of the park, like with their first movies, and she might be at like the very top of the heap.
She's
for me.
2 for 2.
Yeah, I just think I'm so impressed, especially by this movie, The Substance. For me, this is like the film of the year so far.
There's nothing I can really say
I
about
can't
it.
imagine
that's-
something will top it, although it's
yeah.
always I'm always open to it, but I'm just like, I just think this is an amazing achievement. And I'm so glad that she made it and that I got to see it.
And you know
I feel like
what?
privileged to have experienced it.
It might be, I don't know, it might be stupid to say, but I do also appreciate that a woman made this.
Me too.
Oh yeah.
And what this is going to sound very harsh against Alex Garland,
I was
but
gonna
we
say,
know
I was
it's my
thinking
fave.
of Men.
But this is the movie that Alex Garland like thought he was making when he made Men.
Right. And we like men,
Yes.
men made us think, but this is, yes, like, Men is gender 101, really kind of, it has important things to say for sure, but this one is the 300 course, the 300 level course.
It is.
Like, it just has way more to say, way more impactful stuff to say, and it's done from a woman's perspective, and you can tell.
Absolutely. And it makes all the difference in the world. It just works.
And for the amount of nudity in it, I wasn't, like, disgusted that we were seeing it on screen. Like, it made sense.
Oh, yeah, it definitely did.
It was like, oh.
Well, it's funny because, like, everything is done to such excess, but nothing is gratuitous, if that makes sense. It's all so extreme, but it's all to make that point.
Yeah. I mean, the women at the end who are, like, the topless dancers, they are there for a reason, and that is to act as a foil.
Yep.
Yeah, this movie's good. All right.
Yeah.
Go see it, guys.
Yeah, go fucking see it, y'all.
And you can, follow us on various places. Instagram, Queer and Loathing Pod.
Speaking of social media.
You can see our beautiful, highly filtered faces. Just kidding. We don't perpetrate that. We're actually not the villains.
Maybe I'll make a yassified version of all of us for this.
Please do.
Yes.
We'll see if that sees the light of day.
You can email us at queerandloathingpod@gmail.com. We're on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
We're slipping flash drives into your coat.
Yeah,
when
check
you're not
your
looking.
coat.
Check your coat pocket.
Check your yellow coat.
Yeah, check your yellow coat pocket. We're there.
Ooh, one last thing again. Because we didn't
believe
even
you.
talk about it. Well,
Oh,
we didn't
no.
talk about it. I have to say a shout out to it. The music is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah.
The
It's
music is
You're
amazing.
right.
I love, like, house music. Really good.
It was so perfect. Yeah, sound design, just every part of this worked.
Go see it.
Go see it. But yeah, so until next time,
I'm queer.
I'm Loathing.
And I'm Samantha.
And I'm Sue-mantha. Bye.
The Crone in Cronenberg. It's so good.